Okay, who has got their tickets for the conference? Great. Who has not?
Okay, not to call anyone out.
All right, here's the deal. Here's the deal. If you have your ticket or don't have your ticket, I'm going to need your help. And one of the ways that we're able to make the conference affordable is getting room nights at the hotel. Okay, we're short 50 room nights. Okay, and so if you have got your ticket, think about staying a night. Okay, $92. And I'm going to give you a lot of reasons to stay at the hotel. Okay, so here's the breakdown of the conference, and here are your reasons to stay at the hotel. Thursday, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. is workshops. Those workshops are really good workshops to go to. It's a chance to mix and mingle down after the workshop with people that are coming from out of town. As I like to say, you're within staggering distance of your room. The great thing about that is you wake up in the morning, you're at the hotel, you get into registration right away, you get up to the opening keynote. The opening keynote is Jeff Gofeld. He wrote Lean UX. Okay, that's a fabulous book. It's going to be a fabulous talk. Conference runs from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. Great talks to see, and you'll see some of those tonight. At 7 o'clock, we're having a Vegas-style casino night downstairs at the conference. It's free. It's open to the public. We've invited all the meetup groups in the area. That thing's going to be crazy. Okay? And Justin, where are you? Justin Lewis. There he is. Justin, what did you win?
I won a free VIP ticket to the conference, including everything.
So he won, yes, last time he won the grand prize at Casino Night, which is an all-inclusive VIP package. Let me tell you what that entails. He's going to invite-only speakers mixer. That's on Thursday. He's going to go to a workshop also on Thursday. He's going to 2-day pass at the conference, and he paid $0.
Nice.
Okay. So Casino Night's pretty cool. That runs from 7 to 11. You want to stay at the hotel because you're within staggering distance of your room. And then you wake up and you're there, and it's 9 to 6 on Saturday. At 6 p.m., at 5 p.m., I'm sorry, Phil Tippett speaks. Phil Tippett is Oscar winner, Emmy winner. He won for a little movie called Return of the Jedi, Starship Troopers series, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones. Total awesome dude. We're going to have him talk for about an hour. Okay. After that, we're going to do some community service awards, and then we're going to go to the London for an after party. That is your conference experience. Okay. So there are several reasons why you either one, buy a ticket and also stay at the conference. Okay? Treat it like it's an out-of-town conference. Don't worry about traffic. You're right there, and it would really help us out. Okay? So tonight, it's 10-minute talks ahead of big design. And we got ready? Yep.
That one doesn't work, but I think we pulled a spare tire on it.
How do we do that?
Different projector.
Different projector?
I'll be here to help. The next time. Might be a different taping scheme.
Okay. Cool. Are we going to fix these?
These will play.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're good, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Dave Belcher is going to tell you he's our host for tonight, so let's give Dave a...
This is a very exciting talk, obviously, because of the big design conference coming up here soon. So Once again, I just want to welcome everyone to Improving. There's another Brandon Barber's out somewhere too, so if you guys have any questions or any thoughts, go outside, we'll be out there helping out. So, welcome and enjoy.
And Improving Enterprises is one of our sponsors for the conference. They've sponsored us the last 5 years. So a round of applause for that. First speaker is from Improving Enterprises, Brandon Ward. He's going to be talking about UX as a service. Take it away, Brandon.
Thank you.
This stuff still works. Always forget that dongle. You guys have a little better view. I apologize to this side of the river. So,
Squint.
hi everybody, my name is Brandon Ward. I am an experienced designer here at Improving Enterprises. I am an experienced designer. I was trained as a musician. I'm a husband, father of 4 as of last June. I enjoy martial arts. I am bald, but I'm still quite happy. If you need all that contact info, you can see it later on the slides, or talk to me later. What is design? Is it this? How about this? When we think of design, is it the objects that we create? Or, for the bulk of people in this room, it's generally user interfaces. That's what we do, software. Is this design? Sure it is. Are we designers? Yes, we are. But for the purposes of my talk, I want to talk about big design, if you'll forgive the pun. This is too specific. Design is combining empathy for the context of a problem, creativity in the generation of insights and solutions, and rationality in analyzing and fitting various solutions to the problem context. Yes, this is design. They saw a problem, they solved it. I want to read books, I need to store books, I need light to read books, I need a comfy place to sit, and I need to be gorgeous. That's design. This is design. I've got an architectural problem I need to solve. So a software architect or engineer gets together and they hammer out the design of the software. This is called software design. This is design. I was hired once because my syntax was so pretty, right? They loved the way I indented my methods. They loved the way I grouped my methods and my class structure. They said it was the cleanest code they'd ever read. It was really easy to see. I was a designer, but I got hired because my code was pretty. That's design. Because at its core, design is about solving problems. That's what we do. We are problem solvers. So I ask you, what problems are your designs attempting to solve? If you have trouble finding the answer to that question, then you probably ought not be designing in the first place. Because that's what we do. And in that context, developers, stakeholders, everybody solves problems all the time. The lack of design is still design. It's just really crappy. So who does design? Generally, we think about us. We're a room full of designers, UX, UI, graphic design. Marketing, they're involved as well. There's advertising, audio design. You've got your developers and architects and QA, if you will. These are all designers. They design tests. They design all sorts of things. And yes, even management. They are designers as well. In fact, content precedes design. And design in the absence of content is not design. It's decoration. It's Jeffrey Sullivan. Troy Park said, as UX professionals, your role is to understand the motivations, behaviors, and needs of your audience. And that first audience is the people you need to collaborate with to make something. And those are your stakeholders. That collaboration, that's design. They are designers. So here's the Venn diagram you're waiting for. And you're probably expecting me to put something all fancy in the middle right here, right? Well, I am. The point is, though, I don't care who those people are. It doesn't matter. Because we are all designers. And we are in charge of UXing all the things. Everything is UX. Everything. Every URL you have to type in. ImprovingEnterprises.com. How many of you had to type that before? That user experience sucks. And it was designed. But designed poorly. And we're working on it. Right? Whenever you have to go to ImprovingEnterprises.com, you have to type in an all to get there. That's a small thing, but that's an element of design. And we are all designers, because there is no I in team, right? It's a cliche, sure, but we are teams. How many of you work on a team that doesn't call themselves a team? a group or something. You're all teams. What is teamwork? Teamwork is exchanges instead of silos. And it's inclusion instead of exclusion. In silos versus exchanges, I worked at a company, the reason I live in Dallas is because before, I worked for a company. And in that company, there was a UX team. There was a development team. There was a program management team. And there was an architecture team. And then above all of those teams, there were managers. And there were C-levels. And I was miserable. Because I couldn't go knock on a developer's door and say, hey, I see that you implemented my design a little differently than I expected. Let's talk about it. I wasn't allowed to talk to my developers. A developer couldn't come to me and say, Brandon, your design sucks. This button needs to go over here. Because if you did, you got your hand slapped. And if you did it more than once, you got your face slapped. The last time my boss went to promote me, he was told by his boss if he suggested my name again, he would be fired. Because I kept trying to cross those boundaries and talk to my teammates. Silos don't work. We're teams of designers. How can you design in a vacuum? It doesn't work. Exclusion versus inclusion. I was always the new kid. I moved a lot growing up. I was this kid. Always excluded from virtually everything. You find your little niche friends, but there's always that group of people who makes you feel a little less than, right? When you invite people to a meeting, you're including them. When your meeting directly affects the QA department and you don't invite anybody from QA, you are these people and QA is this kid. It's the exact same thing. Contrast that with a happy group, a happy team that works together. A little girl, there's always one little, weirdo in the background, right? But for the most part, everybody works together. Okay? She's off doing something else. But everybody else, we're here to take this picture, right? Teamworks are the same way. And what I want to talk about is how we bring that teamwork, that inclusion together, and how you as designers can help get there. Present a good team with problems, and they'll thrive on finding solutions. Ask them to implement your solution, and they'll only find problems. Think about the last time you came from your lofty pillar on high and held aloft that Scala design, and you gave it to somebody, right? And what did I just do? You gave it to somebody, and they went, no, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is going to take way too much time. I promise you, the number of no's you hear from your teammates significantly decrease with the amount of involvement they are in your process. It also comes into play with how early they get involved in that process, which of course leads to how long they're in that process. As designers, we can be bridges. We are at the hub of this team, okay? This is what we do. At its core, UX is not a deliverable, but a business strategy and competitive advantage in the marketplace. You may be wondering why I'm telling a bunch of designers they should change how their teams work together. Isn't that the PM or some manager's job? Probably. But they're obviously not doing it. You're the hub. You have a unique opportunity here. Here's a nice graph of what I do. It's about red much diplomacy and consensus and a gray sliver of actual UX deliverables. Why? Because we're people, okay? I have people skills, right? That's what we do. We talk to people. So ask yourself, why should my team care about design? Obviously you do. You call yourself a designer. Why should they care? Maybe it's because they don't understand that they're a part of the design process. Maybe it's because they haven't been brought up to think like designers. If John or Sally were involved earlier, we'd avoid all sorts of problems. Who's that person? If you just brought them into the meeting a little earlier, could something have been solved? What specific things can you do that will encourage teamwork, exchanges, and inclusion? And what problems have you seen because not everyone had a chance to participate early enough? One of my projects, manager came down from on high and said, let there be word cloud in this particular product I was working on. And I said, why? And he said, because I like word clouds. and we asked lots of questions, and the business came down, there will be word clouds. And so we said, okay. So I designed word clouds. Came into development, and the developers, we gave them the designs, and they said, WTF, what are you doing? This is hard, we can't do this. Do you know what kind of SQL queries this is going to require? This and this and this, we have millions of rows and all this stuff. And to this day, that was 4 years ago. To this day, that developer will email me out of the blue, freaking word cloud. They hate it. He would walk by my room, I hate you. You know, it was all in jest, but it was significant problems. So the question is, how do we do this? How do we get these teams involved? And that is the 5 strategies I want to share with you to elevate the design thinking in your organization. Communication, cooperation, delegation, humility, and consistency, which ties them all together. And we'll talk about it next week. Thank you.
So one of the things when you organize a conference is you have these things called power hours. And the cool thing about a power hour is that every talk is great. Every talk is great. The bad thing about it is you have to choose a talk. The cool thing about it is the talk that you see may not be the talk that Robert sees or Jeremy sees, and then you get to come out in the hallway and talk about it. Let me tell you about Saturday at 3:30. This is a major power hour at the conference. Your choices are from an author, Stephen Anderson. Jessica Nida will be talking about how to kickstart a game, specifically one that kickstarted for 1.5 million. Myself, and you don't have to go to my talk. Ben, Judy, and Alan Baumgarten, I've seen their presentation, and I'm glad I did because it's a great presentation. It's called Designing for Professionals, and you really have got to change your strategy. Designing for professionals is a lot different than designing for consumers. And they go over 8 different lessons that they've learned, and then they show you a lot of mistakes. That's a really great talk. Then Nathan Smith is speaking. Great developer. It's called the Front End of Future Past. And so he's talking about how the front end is becoming much more important, but really if you think about it, it always was all along the way. He's a great speaker. And then Michael Vaughn is speaking, and I've seen his presentation too, and it's about something we always face, scope creep. Mike?
Thanks, Brian, and I don't honestly know how I'm going to follow up with Brandon's talk. That was amazing. So, first thing I want to do is I want to thank Brian Sullivan and Adam, Jay, Candy, and all the volunteers for this conference next week. I don't know if you've ever put on a conference before, but it's a lot of work. So I just wanted to give them a quick round of applause. And thank them. So my talk is going to be on useful tips of mitigating scope creep. So, by a show of hands, who works on internal projects here? Internal projects, so dealing with sponsors. How about external projects, working with clients outside? Okay. Well, that's fantastic because this talk is about for both of y'all. It's we all run across scope creep. We all run across issues that come, that try to distract and deflate things, and it can really be problematic if you don't know how to control it. So, for the last decade, I've owned my own company, UX mobile web company based out of Colorado. I've been in UX and mobile, and a lot of y'all have been in that space, and it's newer to a lot of clients, internal and external. They get scared along the way, and all of a sudden that scope creep happens. They're like, hey, could you do this really cool thing? And it's awesome, and it's not going to take you a lot of time. But before you know it, it's a time suck, and it takes like 40 hours extra to do. Before you know it, your project's going in the red, and you're like, holy crap, I just want this thing to be done. So my talk is around the useful tips of mitigating scope creep. These are tips that I've collected over the last 10 years that has helped me on my projects with my company, as well as other companies that I've worked on, and also mentoring others. So for tonight, for y'all being here, I'm going to give you one tip, and I'm going to start with Eric, and I don't have a deck, Brandon, so for this tonight, so I'm just going to talk to y'all. But my first tip is to clearly communicate your plan. You want to clearly communicate your plan before, during, and after. My company, we actually work with the Agile methodology, so we have sprints. We make sure that the deliverables are pronounced and in the beginning, actually before, in the beginning at kickoff, during the project itself, we remind them of that, and then post, afterwards, to show them that, so we can have a continued relationship with our client. So, that's one of the multiple tips. The other cool thing about my speech that you're going to see next Saturday is I'm going to get a chance to tell you a really funny story about a cat that we almost killed. So, and there's a lot of parallels to this story of scope creep itself, and you're going to see that next Saturday. So, 3 final things I want to share with you about my talk. You'll hear that funny story about the cat. Happened back when I was in college. If you love cats, I'm sorry in advance. Get useful tips on mitigating scope creep. The third is I'm going to share some real life stories of the good and bad, and things that have happened with scope creep that's really caused projects to tank, and some good things that came out of it as well. In fact, I have one that recently is actually happening right now. So you'll hear about that next Saturday. So, Sully, thank you very much.
So, I've heard the cat story, and it's almost as good as my rabbit story.
The rabbit story is good.
Yeah, the rabbit story is really good. At the end of this, I'll tell the rabbit story. And what I will tell you is that, without giving anything away to the cat story, it involves family, large equipment, even larger equipment, strangers, animals beyond the squirrel, and boy, did the scope really creep the entire time. Okay, beautiful story. Okay, and it's a great example of scope creep. Now, the next speaker that I want to talk about. The other thing when you're organizing a conference is you've got to have someone to really kickstart a track. Right? You've got to get out of the gate and get going. And so there's no one better to do that than the hammer Ken Tabor. All right.
UXPA Madison. I'm so stoked to be here with all of you for the fellowship and the camaraderie. But more so to spread the good news. In 1 week's time, big deal. And my part of that is what's before mobile first. So for me, I can't wait to share what I think are nuts and bolts tactics for surviving the insanity, which is mobile development for websites and web apps. I'm not going to be selling you on mobile first, or hybrid versus native, or trying to talk about fluid versus responsive versus adaptive design. I'm assuming you already have a mandate and some concrete backing. But if you don't, at the very least you're mobile curious. So given that, now that people in charge will let you build a mobile site, you have a problem. You have a challenge. And what's that challenge? For me, it's what do you do before you ship your mobile site? How do you assure that it runs on mobile Safari and Chrome, iOS and Android, laptops probably, as well as phones and tablets, and whatever BlackBerry and Nokia, Microsoft are doing these days. And some people put zero thought into mobile, and I fear for them, because their future is tears and sorrow. And so, I started off talking about the insanity of surviving mobile. Why is it crazy? And I'll tell you, open your suitcase of courage and dig deeply. Because there are so many form factors, you're gonna go positively mental trying to plan it all out in your head. And as much as I encourage the brain sweat of design to reveal edge cases and unhappy paths, I'm skeptical of too much planning. Trying to squeeze the stick real tight before you shoot the puck, trying to avoid the pain of mistakes with so much planning, it's an anti-pattern. We must build things. And for building things, we need tools. And everybody's probably familiar with these. You can already feel them in your hand, right? That it seems so obvious in real life that you can hammer, that you find the right fit for purpose. And some of these tools are casually found at your favorite corner store, right? You've probably bought some of these in the last year. But choosing front-end tools for mobile, it's more difficult, right? Sometimes you don't even know what the choices are. And so for me, I think about building mobile sites as something to get out of your imagination on the screens. You gotta get physical. Sometimes you need to assemble it, bend it, form it. You need to hammer it into shape. So that's the heart of my talk, right? Is to try to give you 7 distinct ways of hammering your design into shape for mobile. And at the big design talk, I'm going to tell you some of the ones that I've really grasped firmly and swung with full force over the last year. And I expect all of you to take away tactics and lessons that when you get back to the lab, you're going to implement them. And you think, oh man, that cat was pretty smart. I'm glad I saw his talk. So it's all about solving the real world problems. And these are the 7 tools, right? Bam, right there. So this is the kind of stuff you're going to see. And for me, these boost productivity, they empower, they help planning, they help find and fix glitches, improve polish, reduce time and cost. And generally, the goal is to make development life happier, because it's an unhappy life. So let's put forward mobile first. First off, you might want to answer this question. You want to ensure that you learn as much about your users as you can. And if you don't have a website if you do have a website now in production, you want to make sure mobile people are trying to hit it, or else why bother? And if you don't have a site, this tool, bring it in immediately. What is the tool? Google Analytics. So a lot of you probably know me as a program writer for a respectable software company. That's been about the last 3 years. I've been at Sabre. Prior to that, I was building video games. So 4.5 years ago, I fell into analytics accidentally. I was at a small shop. We were building a Facebook game for a publisher. And 4.5 years ago, who was the king of the roost on Facebook games? Zynga, exactly. And they had MBAs all over the place. As soon as they were getting churned out of Ivy League schools, they would hire those MBAs. And analytics were measuring what their players were doing on their Facebook games. At the end of the night, they'd get a big old set of spreadsheets. In the morning, they'd direct their designers, build more hats for pigs. Give away any color you want, but don't give away pink, purple, or black. People pay money for those. And when you're designing games, make sure people get frustrated and are willing to cough up a quarter. And me and my friends, we pretty much thought we were seeing the death of the game industry. Well, at least in terms of creativity and invention. Now, I'll tell you, I come out of that bleak period, and now I like analytics quite a lot. And I'm happy to tell you why. Google Analytics in particular is a freebie. You can reach for that tonight. Drop 7 lines of JavaScript in your website, and you're going to start getting numbers the next day when they do their overnight processing. It's always changing, so if you're using it, hopefully I'm going to tell you something new. And if you're not using it, I hope to initiate you into awesomeness. And so I might ask now for you to raise your right hand if you're using analytics right now. Are you using analytics right now? Raise your right hand. Ah, super. Now keep your hands up. Raise your left hand if you're not using analytics, but you're curious about it. Some of you are raising both hands. Are my instructions not clear? So look around, that might be important later, especially if you're not using analytics. You might want to buddy up with one of these people and get them to tell you more stuff. I recommend bribery. Chocolate and coffee are proven.
Starbucks works perfect.
That's science. There's no doubt about it. Analytics. So when you start looking at analytics, avoid vanity analytics. That's meant to be a pejorative term, and that means stuff like, oh, we got so many page counts. That'll make you interesting sounding at meetings and kind of cool at dinner dates. But that is not actionable data. That doesn't tell you anything about your users, what they're doing, what they can't do, what they want to do on your website. You know, getting a ton of hits, it doesn't matter. What matters? Providing value and earning some income because we got to keep the lights on. So seek out analytics that provide actionable numbers and results. And I'll also tell you, it's interesting. There's this job I've seen posted, business intelligence, and if don't let the blue shirt, khaki wearing pointy hairs and biz dev put gates up from you to these numbers. Dig into them and really embrace them because it is key. Own it. The following stats are going to be from my personal blog. Just because I have free access to it, I can share it with you. I'm not giving you any Sabre Showcase private data away here. So check this out. Device info, right? So I did a report on my website traffic, and I do have mobile traffic. It's a blog, but it has a responsive WordPress theme, so there's a chance that people are flopped on their couch with their tablet at the end of the day, at least. And so I look at this kind of stuff, and I think if you're in QA and you need to test on devices, go buy these devices that are popular. At the very least, you got half a dozen things that you know you can spend your meager budget on. If you're building marketing material, why not take a screenshot of your app and wrap it in the frame of one of these phones? Connect with your users a little bit quicker to get that aha moment. And this kind of stuff is important. There was a report just a week ago from a company called OpenSignal. Their Android fragmentation for the year. So guess how many distinct Android devices they saw this year? 1,000. So 18,796. Like, that's ridiculous, right? How is that even possible? I don't know. You can look it up though. So another great thing to track over time, you know, the first half of last year, second half of last year, first half of this year, like nag to download the app, right? So there's like a little meta tag on your website. If you had an app, you could point them to the App Store. That was cool. There were some things in Android. There were some things that removed the 300 millisecond touch tap delay. OS 8 has some killer JavaScript language stuff coming. So as an engineer, you're going to want to look at this stuff and start thinking, when can we work in platform-specific features? So keep track of that stuff and know when it's right and when it's wrong. This is another great thing. I mean, if you're a designer, you're going to want to look at these numbers and see how big are your users? What are they reading your website with? And then that way you can kind of justify where you budget your time when you're developing your screens. And I think it's important to keep track of this stuff and see how the trends are flowing because it's not so evident with my site, but with your site that's going to be more mobile first, you're going to see how things are flowing over time. Especially with these new iPhones that are going to come, 5.5 inch iPhone. Like, you know that's going to be popular. What resolution is that? I don't know, but nobody knows. And it's going to be different, I guarantee you. So check it out, country. Here's another interesting stat I wanted to pull up. You might be saying, Ken, this sounds like a vanity metric. But it's not. Imagine if you're a content strategist and you're going to pull together all the people in your company and say, write blogs. Well, if you're using a bunch of slang or idioms, or like, are people in India going to get that? And in the United Kingdom, like, throw a U in the word color every once in a while. Make them feel loved. Try to appeal to them, you know, and show them love, embrace them. Landmarks, the unique problems that they might have in their country, or how your company might solve them to address their needs. You know, show the love. Artists, are your people coming to your site who have horrible cell phone data networks? Do them a solid and reduce all your JPEGs in half so that they can actually enjoy your site without seeing your data plan get right, which happens. And engineers, if you see a region all of a sudden become popular, maybe call up your content delivery network and raise up edge servers in that region so you can serve them more quickly. These are all interesting things that are actionable. So this is the point where I tell you there's a little bit of a caveat. And it might strike true that I think that there's a terrible schism in America versus art versus science or math versus beauty, and I think it's ridiculous. It's not a useful position, and I'd like to see that combative position go away. And if you are number adverse, don't let pages like this scare you away. Because every time I sit with a new user and we look at pages like this, it scares them away. And you might be thinking, well, like, how did I pull together those other slides? They seem very concrete and straightforward, and this makes me want to barf. And there is a whole list of pages on the left-hand side that, if you click on them, they're going to give you more charts like this. So it turns out that Google thought about that. You know, in true Google fashion, they have all the numbers. It's big data overload, and they're going to let you have it by default. But they also allow you to create custom dashboards that do what? That let you filter through your company's point of view, your website's data. So check this out. Like all of a sudden, this looks lovely, right? This is rational. This is a custom dashboard I put together about a week ago. It's changed already because I found some new things I like. But this allows you to turn big data into concrete knowledge. And use this to run reports. You know, check out the date picker up there. Do it yearly, bi-yearly? Is that every other year or twice inside of a year? Anyway, as much as you want. Do it daily. Find out the trends and how your users are moving and flowing, and meet them. And it's come to a point where I've been looking at this stuff so much the last couple of years, like I don't see numbers, I hear voices. Some of you are looking at me weird now. No, I hear voices, and these are my users speaking to me, right? They're speaking to me through their handsets. And I implore you to listen and hear what they're telling you. And let the user's experiences inform your UX. So I'm proud to say my talk is Friday the 5th at 10 a.m. Can't wait to kick off the mobile track. This is my third year running to speak. Brian has given me such great opportunity, and Keith has really offered fantastic support. And I hope I have a chance to serve you and try to meet your needs and provide value to you when you show up to the conference. I'm going to tell you everything I know. There won't be a Q&A period. Because you'll have Q's, I won't have A's. And keep track of me on Twitter if you want to. I'm going to upload this tonight to SlideShare, and I'll send out a tweet with the link. So if you want to kind of capture this stuff already, it'll be out there. Oh, and one last thing. That dashboard I showed you, the cool thing is I'm going to polish it up over the weekend and make it a little more spiffy and useful, and Google is going to let me share it with you. So when you show up to the class on Friday, you'll see a link for the template of that dashboard, and you can click that in, log into your Google Analytics, and it'll format all of your data that you've been collecting. And I won't know anything about it, so it's not sketchy. Don't worry, it's all totally private. So I can't wait to share that to you, and see me later for some 1v1 time. And thanks so much for your attention.
Good job, Ken.
Appreciate it.
So
Where would I sign up for the 1v1?
the hashtag for the
Look at the part
conference is hashtag #BigD14. Is anybody tweeting tonight? Great, I'm about to give you a tweet. This is coming from a guy that runs a conference called Big Design. You ready? Debbie, you tweeting? I don't believe in design. I believe in designers. Okay. Talked to you a minute ago about the Power Hour. I'm going to give you the designers that are in the Power track on Saturday. You don't have to go to another room to have a good conference. I got their names here so I don't get anything wrong. Don Relia is coming to the conference. He's going to talk about designing things for the Internet of Things. He has over 200 patents. His name is on the patent for Verizon Fios. This guy's a badass. Adam Connor is speaking on lights, camera, interaction design. He created field note guides for better ballot design that were used in the last presidential election. They went out to every county in the United States.
And he has an awesome beard.
Yes, he does. He is awesome. John Kolko was coming. He runs the Austin School of Design. He wrote a book called Wicked Problems. He is actually worthy of the keynote, but we didn't have a keynote available, but he took that one. Russ Unger, we all know and love him. He's written 3 or 4 books. He's going to be talking about lessons I've learned from leading UX designers. And then Stephen Anderson, Stop Doing What You're Told, Reframing Design Problems, which is a lot what Brandon was talking about earlier. So Stephen, Russ, John, Adam, and Don. I don't believe in design, but I believe in them. Okay, that's a fantastic conference right there. So if you haven't got your ticket, that's a really good reason to get one. Okay. I don't believe in studying either. There's a line there. But I believe in students. Chelsea Lace Maxwell was a former UTD student, still is, in your class, right?
That's right.
Okay. So she submitted a proposal, and we do blind submissions. And her proposal was busting brain myths, and she had a really good description. And when we took a peek at who had submitted it, we were very happy, almost giddy. Okay. I don't believe in designs, but I believe in this future designer, Chelsea Maxwell.
Restart that screen. It times out.
And then
It was
I think
second
Brian always
ago.
puts it to sleep.
you're sending the talk.
Yeah.
It imploded.
Suddenly we have the good side of the room.
And with this.
Yeah.
That's true.
One of these. A song.
Pretty much here for
Alright, I have that question. When I play this, or is it song there?
Can you mirror the display?
So if you want some notes.
I'm not a Mac user. This is my work computer, so I'm becoming maybe a Mac fangirl, possibly. I'm not there yet. I was totally anti-Mac before I got this, and now I'm like, oh, it does have some good features.
That's how it starts. I was right there with you.
It's slow.
That one not, so you're good to go.
Awesome. And I'm just gonna ignore that. If you can look over here, that would be awesome. Okay. Okay, so my talk is on busting brain myths for better design. The field of user experience draws a lot from psychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science, but a lot of the time the information comes over distilled in the form of more pop psychology. And when we misunderstand the brain through this way, I think it really impedes our ability to design well for actual human cognition. So tonight, I'm going to be going over one of the 5 myths I'll be talking about at the conference. And that myth is the idea that your brain has 2 sides, a left side and a right side. And that the left side is logical and it deals with language. And the right side is creative and the side that is dominant in imagination. So we're going to start off with a quick quiz to figure out if you are a left brain or a right brain thinker. It's super easy, just one question. Have you ever had a hemispherectomy? Have you literally had half of your brain removed? This is a procedure typically done in very severe cases of certain types of epilepsy. If this looks like your brain, you might be a right brain thinker, just a guess. For the rest of us, and interestingly, even for this guy, it gets a little bit more complicated. So a little about me, I'm Chelsea Maxwell. I am a user interaction designer at Active Network. I'm also working on a master's degree in applied cognition and neuroscience. I'll be graduating at the end of the semester. I'm very excited. And my emphasis in that degree is in human-computer interaction. So what does that mean? Basically, I like brains. I think they're super cool, and I really like studying about how do people think. I also like design and technology, but for the purpose of this talk, it's about brains. Who else likes brains? My man right here, Roger Sperry. Now, ever since the beginning of neuroscience, we've been trying to match cognitive functions with brain location. For a long time, this was just done by meeting someone. Let's say you have a difficult time forming complex, grammatic, lengthy sentences. So we'd have to wait until you died, opened up your brain, looked at it, and see what kind of structural issues were going on in there. When we started having safer surgery, then we began to experiment on patients before and after they had their surgery. Some people who are still alive, which obviously, it just is better science. Roger Sperry did experiments on split brain patients. So again, in the cases of severe epilepsy, the corpus callosum, the major network between the two hemispheres of the brain, would be cut in half. You think this would really affect your everyday life, but it doesn't. Split brain patients usually go back to school and work within a year after rehabilitation. Not that much changes, except for in the cases of very, very specific experiments, such as the one set up by Sperry. In this experiment with the split brain patients, Sperry provided information to only one side of the brain. So he'd ask the patient to touch something with their left hand that they couldn't see, and it would only be processed on the right side of the brain. By doing this, and without the connection, he was able to distinguish what was happening on each side. When the split brain patients touched an object with, let's say, their right hand and the left side understood it, they were able to verbalize this and say, oh, in this case, I'm grabbing a pear. However, in the opposite scenario, where they grabbed it with their left hand and the right side of the brain processed it, they weren't able to say what it was, but they still knew. They could pick it out from a list, or they could identify the object. So Sperry thinks, oh, maybe this means that language areas are on the left side. This is published in the late 60s, and this is a great comic from PhD Comics about how science gets distilled and goes down through media. So we start off with the actual research, which says this might be true in these cases some of the time. It ends up going through the cycle, being further churned until the end. It's A always causes B 100% of the time. This is exactly what happened with Sperry's studies. We then get this published in 1973 by the New York Times. This is incredibly overblown, nothing like what he said. Instead, they say, we are left brain or right brain. That's like quite a statement to me. There are two astonishingly different persons inhabit our heads. That's not really what the science showed. But it went on from there. And this concept of left and right brain thinking started to gain momentum. People like to feel that they're understood. And this paradigm really established that. So there are more and more experiments dealing with this. And eventually, Sperry goes on to win the Nobel Prize in 1981 for this and other brain experiments. Even Sperry himself kind of tells everyone, whoa, y'all need to calm down. He says, one must caution in this connection that their experimentally observed polarity in right-left cognitive style is an idea in general with which it is very easy to run wild. He's basically telling everyone, you're taking this way too far. And of course, it continued today. No one heeded his caution, and now we have the left and right brain paradigm selling everything from books to games to programs, and in this case, Mercedes-Benz. Not sure how that tied in, but everyone is trying to use this. So that's how we got the myth. So what do we actually know about brain hemispheres? The language areas, Broca's area and Wernicke's area, are typically on the left side of the brain. Broca's area deals with speech and production, and Wernicke's area deals with written and spoken speech understanding. So usually on the left side of the brain, that must be the language side, except in 1 in 3 left-handed people, these language areas are on the total opposite side of the brain. Also in 1 in 10 right people. These aren't even neurologically outside cases. These are everyday people whose brains aren't like everyone else's because there is no typical brain. So back to our hemispherectomy patient. This is a patient identified by his initials BL. He had a hemispherectomy at the age of 5.5. You think that this would totally change your life? Actually, he went on to graduate from college, get a job, and there are even some hemispherectomy patients who went to graduate school. And only in very specific circumstances can you tell that they're physically missing half their brain. So you might think I'm taking this way too literally. I know that left and right brain is not actually saying you only think with one side of your brain, but I believe that even as a metaphor, I think it really does a disservice to all of our brains to distinguish creativity and logic, and to create this unnecessary dichotomy, which is in the end very deterministic. You're a creative or a logical person. When in reality, it looks more like this. Creativity and logic are two of many, many aspects of cognition, and you really need to be considering all of them when you're considering people and your users. So what can we as designers learn from this type of neuroscience? Number 1, don't generalize. Make sure you do your research. It would be so easy if we had 2 types of people, left brain thinkers and right brain thinkers, and if we just had to design for those 2 people. Unfortunately, there's a lot more going on there, and you need to be testing on not all your users, but enough that you understand who is there. Number 2, your users aren't stupid. Even if they literally have half a brain, they're not stupid. You need to respect them and maybe experiment with exploratory design. Don't give everything away up front. Let them figure it out because they will be able to. And number 3, designers aren't special. Designers are really interested in personality, brains, and psychology because they like to prove to themselves that they are somehow different. Unfortunately, everyone is creative, and simply because you ended up in a position or a job where you're allowed to use that creativity doesn't mean you're fundamentally different than everyone else. So that's our first myth. The other 4 myths that I will be going over at the talk are the idea that you only use 10% of your brain. We thought we got rid of this one, but it just keeps coming back. It's impossible. The idea that personality types are relevant and that they affect your design and that people adhere to them. Number 4, that color really affects you emotionally. Also a myth. And finally, that there's the digital natives, children who grew up with technology, who think about it fundamentally different than the rest of us. Hope to see you there. That's it.
Let's see if not. I don't think anyone's really looking for from this some of my slides.
Yeah, you can add them. Tom's only been coming to the report about a year and a half, something like that. And so he also was one of the people that submitted a talk. And one of the things about it is we had 4 people voting, and he got 4 of 4 for his talk. So you know that, did you know I did that? He got 4 of 4. We looked at it and he said, yeah, that's good. He's going to be really excited. So you're at Website Optimizers, right?
Yes, sir.
Website Optimizers, and I forgot what your talk is. What's that?
Trust.
Building trust. Yeah, building trust. Nothing more important than trust. Anyway,
How about that?
how about
Applause for Brandon,
Applause for
please.
Brandon. All right, take it away, John.
Hope everyone's doing well tonight. Like Ron was saying, my name's Tom Bowen. I have a little company here in Dallas called Website Optimizers. We work with companies and organizations to help them get more value out of their websites, help them discover usability issues, help make sure their analytics are on par, and telling them useful information. Stuff Ken there is getting into is awesome stuff. I can't wait for his session on Friday. What I'm going to be talking about, as Brian was saying on Friday, is how to establish trust with your users on your website. And I have my presentation 5 strategies tonight. I'm changing it to 1 strategy to establish trust. Okay, so what's the problem regarding trust? Unless you're a big brand name that everyone recognizes, people are going to be inherently leery of coming to your site and doing business with you. And when I say doing business for the purposes, you don't have to be a business, but all sites have goals, have desired actions they're looking for their users, for visitors to take. If you're an online store, that's to buy something, make an order. If you're a charity, maybe to donate money or time or sign up for a list. If you're a business-to-business site, maybe it's sign up for a newsletter or fill out a lead form. If you're a media site, it's to click an ad. So no matter what your site, the other 99% of those sites that aren't AT&T or the Red Cross or Amazon that have this inherent trust built up just from the brand value, the other 99.99999% of those sites that don't have that, they're still wanting you to convert. And on average, about 3% of website visits end up in a conversion. So a conversion being that desired action that we're hoping for them to take. So what is it with those other 97%? What's causing 97% of the website visits to not result in a conversion, not result in that desired action that the website owner or marketer is hoping for? There's a lot of reasons, obviously. One of the big ones is trust. I won't get into numbers here. I'll talk a little bit about it, how I arrived at this number on Friday, but I think it's a conservative estimate to say that 20% of the time or more, a site does not result in a conversion because of some sort of a trust issue. So it's a pretty big deal. If you've got an online store or if you have a business that's relying on your website, you want to build up that trust as much as possible. So how do we do that? How do we build up trust? Well, I'm going to talk about 5 strategies, and I'm going to talk about one of them. This is one of the ones that talk, utilize your sales and marketing strategy. Okay, so you're scratching your head now. You're saying, well, wait a minute, one of the strategies is my strategy. Well, what I'm talking about here with your sales and marketing strategies are things like your pricing, your policies, how you're positioning your products or what your offer is, how you're communicating those things to the web visitor. So in all those components, you're making decisions, strategic decisions on how you're pricing that product, what type of refunds you're taking. So there are a lot of ways you can decide on those and implement those strategic decisions so that they will either build trust or detract from trust. Let's just talk about a couple here. Stay in line with the competition. If you have prices, for example, that are too good to be true, or an offer that's 10 times as valuable as your competitors, there better be a reason. Otherwise, are you going to be trusting that site, or are you going to be questioning that site? We're going to be questioning a site that has prices too good to be true. Here's a site, looks like it sells Coach purses, looks like a pretty professional site. If you're my wife, you might think these are real Coach bags. That's kind of a different story. We won't go into the story here. But if you zoom in and look at the pricing here, the circle piece, they're selling, what is that, $338 bags for 63 bucks. So basically an 80% discount. There's got to be a catch. If you're looking at that and there's no explanation around it, you're thinking, there's got to be a catch. I'm not so trustworthy of this site. It could be a legitimate reason. On this particular site, it doesn't say anything like, well, these are factory seconds, or these are used, or these are knockoffs, which is what happens to be the case for this particular site, which does still exist. The Let's contrast that with another site called ThreadUp. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with this site, but it's basically a like a secondhand site. People take gently used products and sell them to ThreadUp princess. Make it very clear throughout the site, these are gently used, previously owned, lots of times still with tags. They've never been actually used, they're just owned. But they make it very clear. And they also have, see, like, they'll have little notes to sew them. This particular one on the left, it says tiny flaw. So this kind of transparency starts to explain why here they're also offering a $300 bag for 61 bucks. So almost the same kind of discount. But now they're being very transparent with it. Instead of losing your trust, they're starting to build your trust up. This company is, they're giving you all the facts. So if you're not in line with the competition, you need to be able to explain that legitimately. All right, another thing in this same whole first strategy of your strategies, your advantageous strategic decisions, they should be prominent. So things like, you have a really good, in this case, sunglass shop, they have a really good return policy. It's much better than most online stores. 90 days, no questions asked. We're pretty expensive with this, but still, that's a really good return policy. You're often lucky to see a 30-day return policy, and not always no questions asked. Plus, I think you read deeper into this, you can get things replaced for a year. Anyway, really good policy. So they make that very prominent, front and center, top of each page. Free shipping, fittings and returns. And if you mouse over that, you get that little pop-up box that gives you the straight scoop. Not a bunch of legalese. It says, here's the deal. 90 days, no questions asked. Also down by the add to cart button, when you're actually making your decision, free shipping, fittings, and so they reinforce it right there. So when if you have something that gives you a strategic advantage, that will help you build trust. A good return policy like that, or free shipping, that will earn trust with your users, but you've got to make it prominent. Otherwise, you end up with a site like Sephora. They're pretty trustworthy, but from the brand name, but they have almost the exact same return policy. 90 days, no questions asked. Something like makeup. That's a woman buying makeup online. Return policy is important. The color's got to be just right. Skin might react wrong or something. So they have a great return policy, but unless you know to click this tiny little tab up here, you're missing out on that. They're missing a great opportunity to build additional trust, because that liberal return policy could build a lot of trust with their users. Serious, they have a free trial. That's pretty good. No commitment. That'll help build my trust up. But even bigger, no credit card required. How many places have you gone to take a trial? You got to give up your credit card. We'll charge you after the 30 days. It's a free trial, but there's a bit of a commitment there. Serious. They do two good things here for building a trust, but more importantly, for this point anyway, they're telling you, they're making that very clear that, whereas HubSpot, again, they have a 30-day trial, and you see right down at the very low, tiny little print, no credit card required. Man, I sure wish, I wonder how many more people would be taking that trial if they put that bull up towards the top, like Sirius did. More people would be signing that up because they would trust in the site a little bit more. HubSpot, maybe for a lot of us, are pretty familiar with it, but maybe lots of small business owners are just getting into content marketing or something, not so familiar with it to know these guys are pretty sustainable. This missed out opportunity. One more thing here. Your policies, whether strategically advantageous or not, they need to be present and easily accessible, easily findable on the key pages. So again, we're talking about some of the things we just talked about, your shipping policy, your privacy policy. When you're asking for someone to take an action, make sure that you can calm their concerns easily. Monetate is a software company that do e-commerce software. This is a page where it's just a lead form. You're downloading an ebook in exchange for your email and your name so they can contact you. But right below the button, right below the contact, the call to action, they say, look, here's our privacy policy. We won't spam you. We won't sell your information. But even if their privacy policy was worse, even if it just said privacy policy, the point here is they're being upfront and say, before we're asking you to give up the stuff, here, I'm going to make it real easy for you. You can go see what we're going to do with it. Mineralogy is a makeup company based here in Dallas. This is their checkout page, the page right before we've given up their credit card information. The final point before you step off that diving board on that first slide. On this page, right where the shipping charge is mentioned, they've got a link to the shipping policy. Here's how we calculate that. Why am I being charged sales tax? I thought we didn't get sales tax on the internet. Well, with us, if you're in Texas or delivering to Texas, you get charged sales tax. And you can click this link and it explains why you're getting that sales tax. Privacy policy and return policies are right by the submit to order button. So that's a really good example of a page that builds trust by making all those explanations very, very easy to find, not hidden, not part of your weapon to find. So those are some examples of that one strategy. Leverage your strategic decisions. Go back to the slide to look at. But see the other four on Friday, and I have the unenviable task of following up Chelsea. So enviable from the fact I'll have a nice big room, but I'll have a tough follow-up there. So hope to see you all on Friday.
So, Stephanie, Eva, Emmy, come on up. Right now, yes. You? Yes. Yes. And you, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, these are some of your volunteers at the conference. Class, most of them are just students. UTD is also a sponsor, so thank you for seeing you. Thank you. Or you fail. All right, we're going to talk a little Grunt.js now, right?
Well, sure, we can talk about it.
So Preston McCauley is going to.
I'm not going to show any slides, though.
I'm not going to show any slides. He's just going to freewheel it.
I'm going to freewheel it.
He's going to talk about Grunt.js. Give it up for CEO of Project Storytime.
Wow.
Preston McCauley.
Longer and longer with Brian, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. We'll figure that out sometime. So, who here does websites, front-end development, anything like that, or you may want to approach that? Yeah, you know, I figure that hopefully the audience will kind of be on the lower side and they don't even care to think about that. So what I'm really looking at for this talk is something different. I'm actually going to have my partner in crime, Brandon Murray, with me. And he's a high-let and super Java developer plus everything else. So he'll be there to answer some of the really, really technical, detailed questions. But what we're going to look at is we're going to talk about how you can take all of these repetitive tasks you may do when you're looking at building a new website for someone, a new application prototype, a new whatever you typically tend to do in code, and make that thoughtless. So you can easily spin up a new prototype within a matter of a minute. And what I'm going to give you is a whole bunch of tools, techniques that I've learned over the last, 2 years, I want to say, and help you kind of go navigate through the weeds so you're not going, oh man, I'm stuck, I'm totally screwed. Because what this is really about at the end of the day is getting crap done. We all want to get crap done. For me, Brian may know this, I worked on 47 projects at once, so it's about getting crap done in all of these meaningless tasks as fast as humanly possible and taking the human equation out of it completely. So that's really what I'm going to talk about, and the thing here is if anybody says they don't need this, being a person on that side of the spectrum, I was the one that's like, no, I'm sorry, developer friend, no, I'm not going to listen to you. You go over there, and I'm going to stay over here in my happy little CSS and HTML. And then you bring in less, and then you bring in all these other things that we're working with these pre-processors, and you're like, great, I have to run 5 tools now to do all of this in the background, well, I'm probably just burning cycles. So we're going to really do a really quick demo. I'm going to walk through it. We're going to actually even introduce people to CoffeeScript, which I consider visual JavaScript at this point because it's more of an art form. Which how I look at CoffeeScript, and if you know JavaScript, CoffeeScript is more about the indentation, and I think of it almost as visual programming, which is a whole different way to look at it. So hopefully you won't be scared of that. And we're going to take a look at it very, 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 very basic. I'm not going to go into all of the details about Node.js. I'm not going to go into the details that will keep you caught up for hours in the world of misery and pain. I'm going to take away all of that and basically take 2 years of knowledge and jam it into about 25 to 35 minutes so that you will have the tools to go out afterwards, start building your own processes and make it work for you. That's it.
So we also have a track that's called Game Dallas, and really great job being done by Mike Sanders and Kevin O'Gorman from IGDA Dallas. And we do have a speaker here tonight, Adam Hill. And did you want to say a few words about your talk? So Adam's talking about deploying to all games, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to
Multiple
show.
platforms, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to show how you can deploy game. I'm going to pull stuff out and Brian can introduce me. So I'm going to show how you use Unity 3D to deploy on iPhones, iPads, Android devices, and even a PS Vita. So it's a game track, so I assume people that are going to show up are going to know a little bit about Unity. So I'm not going to really do an introduction to Unity. I'll do a little bit of it, maybe, if I get a lot of people that show up. But man, I'm going to assume you know Unity, and I'm going to show you all the tips and tricks you need to know to deploy all the different sizes. Like what he pointed out, there are 18,000 something Android devices, and guess what? Your game is expected to run on all of them perfectly every time.
So one of the things that we are going to do a couple of weeks after the conference is Day of Unity. And so at the Treehouse in Addison, it's an opportunity for you to learn Unity 3D and actually build your own game to deploy to all those platforms. So that's going to happen a few weeks after the conference. That's a free event also. So if you really are wanting to know about game development, that is going to happen. So running a little short on time. Jeremy, you want to talk about what you're talking about?
Sure.
Yeah, so Jeremy,
He'll make up the time.
yeah, Jeremy will make it.
Is the projector working?
Oh, don't know.
Ah.
What was it?
Trying to keep away from it. Touch the remote every once in a while.
So for those of you who don't know Jeremy is over at Project 202. He's one of the co-founders of the conference. He's the person that named the conference, Big Design Conference. He also does the swag every year. We got some really
green this
kick-ass
year, so it'll be like green
swag.
t-shirts. So.
Well,
I think every year we're doing primary color now, so you got your t-shirt, so if it's vintage or not.
Jeremy Johnson.
So my talk is putting user back in user experience. I was going to start the talk with a little bit of history. Back in 2000, this was a very popular chart in the user experience field. And in fact, as a user experience designer, it was great to see that, hey, for once, user experience encompasses more than just visual design, which at the time is what people kind of thought we were. And so we're not just painters, right, which was great. And UX became this thing, right? And it was so much more complex than just painting things and doing kind of a service level visual design. And then in 2010, things started happening around service design. So we own much more than a website. Now it's not just about making a UI on a website. We own all the touch points. So the touch point might be in your call center, point of sale, in the store, wherever a customer is touching anything. As a UX designer, I now own that, right? Because now it's a user experience of everything. Uh-oh. And so then a lot of people talk around having a seat at the table. Like as a designer, I have a seat at the business table. I could sit at the big boy or big girl table. Jared Spool has this list of business strategic priorities, right, that designers should know So we should know that our experience affects these metrics and how can we improve upon them. And so we put our ties on, right? We got to work. And at this point, we thought we won. In fact, if you look at the design value index, there are companies that are rated as design-friendly companies. They consistently outperform the S&P 500. So hey, there's from the business side, we're winning there as well. But it's not that easy. There are still hundreds of companies that make revenue off the software they provide, and the hundreds of millions of dollars that don't have a user experience team. They don't have one person dedicated to user experience. And the way they're making that money is because they're solving problems by automating solutions. And it doesn't have to be easy. It just has to be easier than doing it manually, right? And you can make a lot of money off making a very difficult software tool as long as it's easier than doing it however you were doing it beforehand. A lot of these companies will say they're focusing on user experience, and sometimes that's a checkbox meaning they just hire a UX guy or gal, and they're done, right? Check the box, we're doing user experience. And then of course it might look something like this, or even like this, right? As a UX designer, we could spray a little magic, and all the developers have what they need, and man, print money. And so we had these phases where, UX, we've learned that UX is actually this complex thing that involves more than just visual design. We learned that UX is everywhere, right? User experience is everything, that you're all the touch points for your company. And then we also learned that UX is business, that we actually affect business metrics. And so in 2015, it's interesting because I feel like we're forgetting something. And what sometimes I feel like we forget is UX is actually for people, users. Or I actually don't like to call them users. I like to call them people because that's what cigarette companies call their end users. They call them users. But if you look at this chart from 2000, the base thing in this model was user needs, which is interesting. Right? It's from 2000, base thing that fills up user experiences, user needs. And so imagine your boss, imagine you're building a product, imagine your boss comes up to you and says, hey, I want you to go and understand our user needs. How do you do that? What do you do, right? Like, it's there. I mean, it's something that your boss should be asking you if they're not asking you, right? There's been a couple of articles recently. There was just one on Medium called What UX Isn't. It was a 3-minute read. It was very short, but it was interesting the number of paragraphs about involving end users in your process. So user research and usability testing, deep understanding of your target demographic, unbiased research and testing, right? Again and again, it's all about going out and visiting and seeing your users. The Nielsen Norman Group just posted something recently. I like how they have the UX minus U is actually X, right? User experience cannot exist without users, and even the most well-thought designs are only assumptions until they're tested by real users. Leaving out the user is not an option. The Wall Street Journal just recently had a post from somebody who works at Google Ventures talking about investing in user research is just about the only way to consistently generate a rich stream of data about the customer needs and behaviors. Go listen to your customers. So let's talk about listening to customers. And so this I'm actually a little curious about. So, so say someone gave you that hey, go find out about our users, right? So here you go. I could go read stories about users online, right? I can go watch videos, right? So there's different levels here where I'm getting market data. I'm watching past videos. I've seen users in labs, right? Like we have a usability lab, we bring users in, I watch the users in the lab. You go out and observe the users in their natural habitat, right? And in each one of these things you learn something different, right? You build that user. Of course, there's also I understand best practices, and I'm a student of psychology, which is also the shut up, I'm a genius, which isn't really an option. But and so which one really accurately answers that question? Hey, I want you to go and understand our user needs. I want to know them so well, the system we designed just works for them. And so I actually am curious. So how many people are in user experience field building products that a human uses? Not a robot or an animal, but a human. Okay, so let's start at the bottom of the list. So who gets some sort of data about their users? Could be from the marketing group, could be from surveys, right? Maybe some market demographics. Okay, so how many people get data from, they have maybe past personas that were developed a couple years ago, so some written data you're able to kind of pull from and learn a little bit, okay? How many have a usability lab at their disposal? You're able to bring in users on a regular basis, okay? And then how many people actually go out and watch your users use the product that you're designing? So those are low numbers in my opinion, right? So as user experience designers, user is in the title of what we do, and if we're not involving users, we're actually not doing user experience. We're doing something different, which some people would call web design. So I'm going to go over, actually what am I going to go over? Sorry. Oh, I forgot. User experience in the name, web design as a trend is actually trending down if you look at Google Trends. And that's actually scary because it looks like user experience doesn't exist, but user experience is actually going up. It's also interesting how as a profession, that we're rated a low stress job, but also a low benefit to society. Sorry, I'm going to skip it. I'm going to skip ahead because actually the part I wanted to get to is So I'm going to talk about 5 ways how getting 5 ways in getting to know your users helps you in your job as a user experience designer, like getting user quotes and how those are powerful. And then I'll go over some design research techniques that we use at the company that I work for, which is Project 202, where we have a user-centered kind of design research process that we follow. So that'll be my
So that was an hour and 10 minutes. So, yeah, great job. Next up is Sean.
Woo!
And interesting story. Sean works at TrickCase. I have no idea what you do there.
I'm a developer.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I said. Sean's a developer at TrickCase. So when getting the blind submission, we got this top title, and we actually had 3 out of 4 checks, so we still needed to do a sniff check. So we asked a couple of people about it, and one of the people we asked was Ken. And Ken goes, wow, this sounds really interesting. And then we accepted the talk, and then he described it to us, and it wasn't like anything what we thought it would be, but it's still an awesome talk. The talk title is
Huxley and the Flying Robot Monkeys.
Isn't that an awesome title? And you're about to find out what he's going to talk about, because it wasn't anything what I thought it would originally be, but it's awesome. Take it away, Sean.
I am Sean, and this is my lightning talk. I will tell you more about myself and the talk that I'm going to give at the end. But first, I'm going to talk to you about something that's not in the talk, which is 2 things that are awesome. I'm going to talk about one cool tool that I've been using for years that I love, and I think that you guys will love. And then I'm going to talk about a cool tool that I just learned this week that I still love and I think you're going to love. But I don't know much about it, and hopefully it won't crash and burn. This is going to be super focused on Mac. However, these ideas are transferable to Windows, so remind me I have alternatives for Windows. I'm going to start slow, but it's going to get super nerdy, so hold on. Who knows about the Apple Design Awards? Yeah, to set the stage, the Apple Design Awards happen every year at WWDC. You watch the huge keynote, right, where they announce software and hardware. Well, the Apple Design Award happens right after that, and as far as I'm concerned, in terms of prestige, it's like the Academy Awards of software design. The purpose is to recognize apps that push the state of the art in interaction design. Things that have won this award before come from studios like Panic. Has anyone used Coda? Coda's awesome. You should use Coda. It won an Apple Design Award. Panic is known for world-class user experience in their software. Panic also won in 2005 for their app Transmit, which is an FTP program. If you want to get files from one computer to another, or from one computer to a server, like you're pushing up a website, you're going to want to use Panic. How could you not use Panic? It's amazing. I use Panic. Another studio that is like Panic is Sofa. Sofa won an Apple Design Award for versions. Does anyone use Subversion? I forget it. Well, Sofa is also notoriously known for fantastic apps, and they made the app that I'm going to talk about, which is Kaleidoscope. Who uses Kaleidoscope? Good, because Kaleidoscope is the bomb. Kaleidoscope is an app for spotting differences. You could have like a text file over here and a text file over here, and it tells you how they're different. It does the same thing for folders, like how all the files are different in a folder. It does the same thing for images. Images! Do you guys know about images? Okay, so I'm going to go into a demo. I'm going to break out the slides. I know this is super risky. Hopefully it won't be the worst thing you've ever seen. The the first thing I'm going to show you with Kaleidoscope is folder dipping. So I have a friend, I made a website for my friend. His name is Jeremy. He is a photographer. And it's one of those sites that I did like one-off, and it's not in source control. You know, I put it up there like 2 years ago, and he's been editing it, so I have no idea how he's changed it, right? So I have the version that I made, and then there's this version that I just downloaded via Transmit. I just downloaded the version that's out there now, and I want to know how the versions are different. Because he says, oh, Sean, there's this bug where this one person on this one device says that it doesn't work, and I need you to fix it. And I'm like, okay, but the version I have is like super, super old, and the version that you have is like something you changed, and I don't know anything about it. And I'm going to show you how Kaleidoscope can help that. Boom! These are the differences. These are all the files that have changed. And for example, I can take a look at index, double-click on it, and it shows you he changed. Can you guys see this? It shows you that he changed the last updated at. He removed some white space. Oh yeah, he's really into details, so he made some typography changes. Like, so instead of this like straight quote, he made a curly quote because he's like really fancy with typography. I don't know. And then the very end, he changed his phone number because apparently he got a new phone number, or he needed to hide from somebody or someone. I don't know. So that's pretty badass. So that's Kaleidoscope. Oh, but Kaleidoscope does so much more. I'm not even done, man. So you guys know about image dipping? Image dipping is the bomb. So look at this. This is a still from the film Star Wars. This is from the Blu-ray that you get right now. This B is the original. They added a rock. So look at this. They've got these tools in image dipping where you can like go like this. Look at that. Look at that. Or you can go like this. Or you could go like this. Look at that. But this is my favorite one. This is my favorite one. Boom. This is the difference. This is the difference. It's so ridiculous. So this is what Island has been working on for decades. This kind of shit. I'm going to tell you about Kaleidoscope. Look at this one. Oh my god. That's like so different. That's like an indie film, and that's like a real movie. Okay, now I'm going to blow your mind. So you know how you make like websites? I make websites too. I make one called Tripcase at a company called Tabor. We make changes all the time to our CSS, and our CSS breaks all the time. We make one change over here on this side of the site, and it breaks this other thing on this side of the site. I have some changes, so check this out. Here's the app. This is the create trip page. You can create a trip on this page. But people don't know about Tripcase. You can forward an email, your email itinerary, to us, and we will parse it and put it in your Tripcase for you. So you signed up on Southwest, you got an email that says, hey, your flight's on this time. Forward that to us, we put it in your app. That's pretty badass. People don't really know about that, so I want to add a note under the continue button. I'm going to make a change. So I've got a change that's like pre-done here. So I add this note to the bottom of this HTML file, and then I make a CSS change. And you will see it here. Boom, got a note there, right? Hopefully, this is a pretty small change, right? I just added a note. It's not going to break anything on the rest of the site, right? So I've got a tool that I love that's called Huxley. Huxley is going to go through every page on my website, and Huxley's going to take screenshots of those pages. And Huxley's going to tell me how every single page changed. And look at this. There's 3 pages that changed. One of them I know about. I did this. I know about this one. But this one changed. Ignore the bottom. The top looks pretty good, right? That's how it's supposed to look in the app. So what the hell changed? I can use Kaleidoscope to tell me. So there's the CSS, there's the HTML, we know all about that. Here's the one that we're worried about. What the hell changed in this one? How the hell did adding the note mess with this? Turns out there's this thing in CSS called the cascade, where I have no idea what's going to happen whenever I make a change. So there's a naming collision where we were already using the class note on somewhere else on the entire separate part of the site, and nobody's going to catch that. No QA is going to catch that that went away. But those kind of changes happen all the time to everyone, and there's nothing we can do about it. So that's one tool that I love, and it's called Huxley, and I'm going to talk more about it at my talk. Now I'm going to show you the thing that I just learned last week that is the bomb. Have you guys heard of color guard? Do you guys know about color guard? Like where they throw the flags? Does anyone? Okay. There is a tool that's like Huxley called color guard. So I can go into my project and I can say, so let me show you the tool. Color guard is a tool that keeps a watchful eye on your CSS colors. So you've got hundreds of colors in your site, right? But you want it to be strictly defined to the predefined colors that you set out at the beginning, right? As a project grows in size through time, you introduce millions of colors, and they're so close to each other. This tool will actually take a look at all of your colors and tell you which ones are really, really close to each other. Boom. That was like really easy to do. All I had to do was install it, and it shows me all of these errors. It's super so I use this tool called Color Tools. ColorTools.net. Does anyone use ColorTools.net? Do I have the internet? So these two colors are like blue, and they look exactly the same. They do the same in terms of jobs to be done. These two colors do the same exact job. We would never know that manually looking at the site, but there's this tool, I'm going to call it a monkey, that you can just set on your app, and it'll like tell you things that you've done wrong. So those are two tools that I'm going to talk about, and there's like hundreds of these tools that take zero effort to install, zero cost to you, but provide immense value. So now I'm going to tell you about me. I told you that I would. I warned you. And I'm going to do it. This is me. Please follow me on Twitter. I will talk about HTML and CSS and JavaScript and Ruby, which are two languages I use on Tripcase. I'm going to talk about, I'm super interested in maintaining big projects. Big projects over a long amount of time, developers, designers, all messing up the project. I'm interested in testing. I'm interested in tools to make you faster. My talk comes right after the Grunt talk. Go to the Grunt talk, then go to my talk. They're going to be very related. It's all about automating workflows to get stuff done faster. And not just stuff done faster, it's about getting quality stuff done. So these little tools are like little monkeys, and you just unleash them into the cloud. The cloud being, you know, the internet. You put them on the internet, and they will come back to you and do all of these dirty little work. So in this metaphor, you are all the Wicked Witch. You are all Mila Kunis. Huxley is a tool created by Instagram, and it's used by Facebook, and is super badass. And you're gonna love this talk. I'm done.
So, running extremely short on time, but we do have our keynote, Adam Polanski. Are you going to reveal anything about your talk, Adam?
It's hard.
So your Friday closer, Adam Polanski from Bottle Rocket Apps, will be talking on something cool. So here's the big reveal, because he hasn't told me what it is.
Yeah, well, I just finished it this afternoon. At least the talking part. I have no pictures to go with it. And I may not. I don't know. I have done a lot of talks, a couple keynotes, and the nice thing about being a keynote is you usually don't have to say anything about what you're going to talk about. You don't even have to give it a title, which I haven't done yet. What I'm doing differently this time, in a lot of talks, I always try to talk about new stuff, what's going on, what shapes the way we think or ought to be thinking about the work that we do. This time around, I realized that I have an advantage in that I began in design and media at a time when there were no computers. And I got to work for a fabulous guy named Maxwell.
Anyway, October, we'll do the ice cream social. All right, so let's network, and I hope to see you at the conference. See you guys.